since the Argonauts are going to Saskatchewan to play a defective home game against the Saskatchewan Roughriders, we brought on our favorite Riders person to talk to, Britton Grey. And before we even get into that game or anything else, I don't even know if actually I know you have a dog, but do you have a girlfriend? Do you have a wife? A wife? I'm not sure what your
I
status
have
is.
a girlfriend. Yeah,
Is she as loyal to you as Ryan Dinwiddie is to Jake Maier?
I
Because
hope
if she's
so.
not, I would leave her.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly hope so, right? But yeah, Ottawa, interesting stuff. You talk about some really interesting news during the middle of the week here.
I was looking to come on here and just say like parody, 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 because that's what it's been this. Because I feel like through so many of the games so far this year, we've seen any team can win, any team can lose. The true cliche of what you and I know from our NFL fandom as any given Sunday, which is really any given week in the CFL. But Ottawa's like the one team for right now where that exception kind of just gets pushed off to the wayside.
It feels that way, right? It just feels like so much is going wrong now. A part of that, I think, is because they had so many changes. You bring in a new coach, new quarterback. That defense has some players. Obviously, I covered a lot of them. They stole a lot of the Riders, right? CJ Rivas, AJ Allen, Habakkuk Baldonado. It's going to take a little bit, but boy, it doesn't look good. And for them to make that move and trade Drew Brown and bring in McLeod Bethel Thompson, just intrigue all around into what Ryan Dinwiddie's trying to accomplish.
That's exactly it. As Sergio with a 41-yard miss. And for folks of those of you wondering during the show, I don't have this game on the timeline, but Edmonton plus 3.5. I feel like that's more than anything is the surprise of me tuning into this game and being like, oh, look at the Elks, look at the 2-0 Elks. But no, I do think Ottawa will figure it out. It's just what I saw last week. I'm just like, because I'll say this: if Chad Kelly has that same performance tomorrow night as he did last Saturday, Sask wins that game, no problem. Saskatchewan easily wins that game and just takes over. But it's the fact that it doesn't look in sync. It doesn't look like they're not simpatico. Like it's really hard what to think of the Ottawa Red Blacks right now. And also the fact too, you had the bad attendance. I made the funny observation in my recap piece of Ryan Dinwiddie to a whiteout game wore black, which should have been an indication that this game was going to be more of a funeral than a whiteout. So, Ryan Dinwiddie, you kind of forecasted your own future there, buddy.
He really did. Like I said, it's now obviously it's the CFL. You have a lot of time early to right the ship, but it's just like McLeod Bethel Thompson. And if I'm being honest, one of the more mind-blowing things about that trade was Winnipeg giving up a first-round pick for Drew Brown. Drew Brown hasn't exactly lit it up since going to Ottawa. He's been hurt. And Jeremy O'Day's been able to find a lot of talent in the Canadian draft. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers find a lot of talent in the Canadian draft. I couldn't believe they gave up a first to get Drew Brown.
The way I look at what Kyle Walters probably was doing there is I think he's trying to think ahead to next year. So in case Zach does leave, you have a true quarterback competition in camp between Taylor Elgersma and now Drew Brown to, hey, who wins the job? But at the same time, too, it being that, I'm going to give an example because I know your team, the Tony Romo, Dak Prescott approach, where it's kind of like, hey, maybe Taylor Elgersma comes into camp, wows everyone, or they say, hey, Taylor's not ready yet. We can put Drew Brown in and behind we'll see what a Tommy Condell offense is because that's a bit of a mystery on its own. But with this Mike O'Shea-led Blue Bombers team, we have that security blanket at quarterback. You have a 1A and you have a 1B instead of just a proper 1 and 2. I don't think this hurts Elgersma. I think if anything, it more just establishes Winnipeg's thinking of more what's the next 5 years of Blue Bomber football going to look like because Zach may be back next year for all we know. We don't know that yet. But the fact that they're looking so far ahead, it's kind of saying, hey, we want to get ahead on everything. And maybe they don't like the quarterbacks coming out, or maybe it's like I'm saying that the conversation of Zach may be indicating this is my final season. We just have to let the season play out at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's what they decided. Like you just knew Drew Brown wanted out of there. You knew it wasn't a good situation, and you still gave up a first. I just thought you could have maybe for a third or a fourth got Drew Brown.
Because I feel like in-season trades in the CFL are very, especially in my time, I feel like this is the first one you've seen where it's like a needle mover. I feel like you don't really see it because you don't even really see it in the NFL to begin with as well. But I feel like with the CFL, you never see these trades.
It's rare. I will say the Riders had one a few years ago, actually, in season to get Mario Alford from the Montreal Alouettes. They made that in-season trade, and he really came in and turned into one of the most dynamic returners in the CFL for a few years there. So, but yeah, in terms of really moving the needle, it's you have a starting quarterback, a guy who has starts in this league, heading somewhere else mid-season. That doesn't happen a whole lot.
He started a playoff game 2 years ago, and I I literally got to talk to him after that game, and you could tell that even though like Ottawa at that time was more trying to learn last year, it just seems like everything really took a toll on him to where, hey, maybe returning back to where it all started for him is kind of a good thing for Drew in the long run. Like, I'm not here to say yeah he's going to go and win the Grey Cup next year, but even though there's a 99% chance here in the playoffs, but with an overall standpoint for him that, hey, I can go somewhere new, I can get reset, and I know that, hey, they wanted me as opposed to Ottawa where Ryan Dinwiddie was never really sold on me. And when he was saying, Drew's our guy, Drew's this and that, that's just him being a coach and basically telling, because if he goes out there and says, yeah, no, we don't believe in Drew, you also lose trade value on him. If they had found out from jump, hey, Drew's not our guy, we're not moving forward with him, you're not recouping a first if you're Ryan Dinwiddie. No, you're getting maybe that third or fourth pick, like you said.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I love the CFL. Always intrigued somewhere.
With loves the CFL and how I say the parody aspect of everything, I want to talk about your team for a second for two reasons. Because I remember I came on here last year and I was talking about player touchdown props, and I brought up Keon Schaefer-Baker as someone to say, and you were like, oh, he's hurt. I feel like he's out here reminding the rest of the league who exactly he is, because between him, Sam Emilus, and the ageless wonder Trevor Harris, I feel like for Sask too, say what you want about the way they've won their first two games of the year, but good football teams find ways to win football games, and bad teams will always find bad ways to lose football games.
Yeah, that's kind of been my thing too. I've said it feels like Keon Schaefer-Baker is reminding people how good he can be, because it is very rare the first defender tackles him. He breaks tackles all the time. He stays up, he gets the extra yards, and then now that he's healthy, you're seeing what made him so dynamic his first few seasons in the league. It's hard to believe he hasn't reached 1,000 yards, just hasn't been able to stay healthy. So he's been good. I mean, you talk about Sam Emilus, but also Keyshawn Johnson. They have a three-headed monster out here in Regina, out here in Saskatchewan with the receivers. And yes, this team is finding ways to win. They win close games. They don't want to keep making this a habit. They want to be able to put teams away, and that's something Trevor Harris talked about. They find it when they need it. It's a bad habit to get into, because what happens if you don't find it in that one time where you do need it?
It's kind of like what Montreal just went through this past weekend against Edmonton. It's that same sort of thing when Montreal, like, look, they had their fair advantage, and they did win. Toronto was garbage time, but whatever. But when I say to find a way to win, I don't mean it in a bad way. I always meant in the way of just good, like how I say it, in any sport. A good team will find a way to come back and win a game. But then on the flip side with that game too, Calgary, I don't think they're a bad 2-0. I just think Calgary's kind of been, you draw the short end of the stick. When you pull the wishbone off a turkey, you kind of get the short end. You pull the short bone. It's just that sense too. But even going back to the receiver aspect of it with KSB, I don't think we've seen a greater boom of Canadian receiver talent in such a long time, because you got him, you got Keandre Smith, you have Kevin Mittal, Nick Dembski, Clark Barnes, Dejon Brissett. Like, there's all these guys, Jalen and Tyson Philpott, which I didn't think at first that what Jalen Philpott's comments were really going to light a fire underneath the Riders. But hey, that's the same thing too. It's the Michael Jordan approach. Use any little thing that anyone says against you to your advantage, and you're gonna pay off with it in the long run.
Absolutely. That's really what the Riders are doing right now, is they're finding little ways to get motivated. They're defending Grey Cup champions. They know they're number one, but their first game, all the talk was on the BC Lions and Nathan O'Rourke. Nathan O'Rourke's year. He's the best player in the league. BC's going to the Grey Cup. They knew about that. They made mention of it. Trevor Harris in his postgame said, yeah, it's hard to win in this league, especially against everyone's pick to win the Grey Cup. They know what's going on. And I appreciate how they've been upfront in the fact that, yeah, we're reading what's out there. We know what people are saying about us, and we're using it. And so that it's this championship caliber team. They're finding ways. Corey Mace has done such a great job of building that foundation, knowing how to push these guys' buttons in the right way to get them motivated. Then it comes down to the leaders. This team knows that they went through a bunch of changes. They're aware that's what people are saying about them. The core's still here, and they found ways to win last year, and they're doing it again this year, as you said.
That's just it. They're finding these ways to just, get it done. They're finding these ways to motivate themselves. They're self-motivators, and Corey Mace is just the right guy to kind of lead that sort of ship. It's that almost like players coach mentality, but it's why even like when we spoke, I said, hey, I'm not worried about the defense of the Riders, which I mean every defense is giving up 30 points a game, but that's another topic. But Corey Mace is that kind of guy where he's like, hey, we lost some talent, but I'm a defensive guy. I know how to control this defense to kind of like be the orchestrator of what can be a great defense. I also love the fact, too, that obviously the article came out this week about the Riders posting a negative for the year. But I love the fact how it's not like, oh, nothing they did, nothing about attendance. No, it's Mother Nature's fault why they lost money this year. Because I remember you and I spoke about how people had to sleep in their cars. I believe the Stamps had to stay at the University of Regina. Like there was a whole bunch of things that happened with that, but I just love how that's the one thing where it's like, everything else was fine, but a forest fire and smoke hazards really what caused everything for us to lose some money. But I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's just, hey, unfortunate circumstances led to an unfortunate situation.
Well, those are some pretty nice Grey Cup rings they bought. I'm sure that cost a pretty penny as well, because
it's a bad problem to have. It's a good problem. It's a good bad problem.
It's a loss they will take every year if they have to, because Craig Reynolds, the CEO, and the CFO, Ken Paul, they're accountants. It's funny because they post this loss, but they somehow still added money to the stabilization fund. So you had extra money. You just chose to report the loss. And yes, it was the smoke delay game that played a part of it. A big chunk of that was playing and winning the Grey Cup. They said it's an away playoff game. You have to pay for hotels. You have to pay for travel. They flew a lot of the players' families in and took care of that to do right by their players, to just make sure that they're only focused on one thing. And then we mentioned the rings. They toured the Grey Cup around the province. It costs money to win the Grey Cup, as we found out, and the Riders had to pay for it. But as I mentioned, that's a loss they'll post every time if it means they celebrated a Grey Cup win.
100%. It's like, imagine, it's like, I remember the saying when the Bengals were going to their Super Bowl a few years ago, and the whole thing with their owner is not thinking, hey, I'm happy to be here. No, it's, I have to pay for everyone to get there. You also pay for staff. You have to pay for everything else. That's why I was saying it's a good, bad problem to have on top of, hey, look, smoke delay game is a smoke delay game. Like I said, those are just things you can't control. But the fact, too, that you won the Grey Cup, so now, hey, we have to make rings for the players. Hey, we have to bring in the families. Hey, we have to, flights, hotels, all this stuff. It's good problem after good problem after good problem that if the Riders have to deal with again in about 5 months' time from now, or about 4.5 months, excuse me, they're not going to be terribly upset by it.
Nope, not at all. It was a celebration in Rider Nation, that's for sure.
Gotta ask you though, for the first couple weeks for the first few weeks, almost, it's weird to say, almost the first month of the season, has there been anything to really surprise you so far, either in a good way or a bad way?
I mean, the BC Lions have been surprising with how bad it is. Now, a lot of that is injuries. This team is barely able to field a full receiver room right now with all the injuries they've suffered there. But I just thought that defense would be better, and it just isn't. It almost feels worse than last year because they ended the season quite strong. Now, yes, they're missing Gary Peters. He's dealing with an injury, but it's been bad there. And I think another surprise has been Chad Kelly. We didn't know what to really expect from him. He's come out and slung that football. You forgot how good he is throwing the ball, but he has one of the nicest spirals in the CFL, and he is on point. Throws a lot of interceptions, yes, but those are kind of the two surprises when I look at right now. It's been Chad Kelly, looks like he hasn't missed a beat, and BC's just hasn't looked good, and part of that is injuries.
We'll get into it in a little bit, but I feel like with the Toronto Argonauts, they're in that same rider category where they can win a game. They can go in any game, and you're like, hey, they got a chance to win, but also at the same time, yeah, there's a very good chance they could lose this game as well. Just because I look at Toronto, and I'm not out here saying, yeah, they're going to be Grey Cup favorites, but I think they're going to be right where I thought they would be, which is like between 7 to maybe 10 wins. As of right now, I would say it's probably them and Montreal in the East Final. Maybe Hamilton. Who knows who wins the East? But I also say this too because I was always worried about this going into the season with Mike Miller and how he's going to hold himself. He's held himself great. He's that kind of guy where he's a serious football mind, but at the same time too, he's a player's coach and he knows what the players want and everything like that. So we'll see what happens. But he's really got Chad wired the right way. But my big thing with Toronto, more than him playing well, is the fact that there's not just like one guy who's been playing well. You've got Kevin Mattal, who's been amazing. You've got Coxie's been getting involved. Adam Conman's coming out of nowhere. Dave Ungerer, the fact they have kind of this running game with Sam Hicks, and now you put in blanking on the guy's name. You have I'm gonna look this up just because it's going to kill me, especially as the resident Toronto Argonauts person on for 3 Down Nation. Give me a second as I do little Jeopardy music here and there. Where is his name? Isaiah Smith, rookie from Guelph. So you have those two there. And then here's the other thing too with this as well. DeMonte Coxie, quiet the first game. Jake Herzl has been hurt for the first 2 games of the year. Now, injuries have come into play. Robert Priester is done for the season with an Achilles, so it's going to be interesting to see where things go. But I really think this is a Toronto Argonauts team that I don't want to say people were sleeping on, but I just think people were writing off a little bit too soon. I think people were just kind of in that like, oh, Toronto, same thing as last year. I think last year there was a lot more. It was like what BC's going through, where injuries piled up and they piled up quick, and they just didn't have the depth to recoup because of that Grey Cup losses. But with BC right now, I don't know. It's more than anything with me beat BC is the fact that they can't get a consistent pass rush going. You have one of the best defensive linemen in the league. You have some guys you brought in like Casey Sales, for example. The only time Casey Sales got near Bo Levi Mitchell last week was him throwing away the ball and him joking with him, being like, hey, buddy, good pass, good everything like that. So that was my more big concern is what does Mike Benavides have left on his leash? And even, I don't know if 2 and done is a thing in the CFL, but like if they don't, we've said it before, they're not in Calgary. It's going to be a massive disappointment for this Lions team.
It will be, because you have the MOP, you have what you thought was going to be a better defense. You had one of the best receiving groups in the league. It would be a disappointment. Like I said, part of that's injuries, but to me, Nathan Rourke's the MOP. They didn't look in that game last time out. He has to at least keep this team in games if he's the best quarterback in the entire season. Doesn't have to win it. I get sometimes the mountain's a little bit too high for any player, but you have to just lead it a little bit better. Like he only has 1 touchdown pass. Yeah. That has to be better no matter who the receiver room is. I'm sorry, especially when McInnes was out there. But yeah, it has to be better in terms of Toronto. I think you're right. Some people did underestimate them. I was maybe one of them because we didn't know what Chad Kelly would be. He's a really good quarterback. That's what Chad Kelly's going to be.
That's exactly it. I mean, he's not, and we're seeing it right now. Justin Wright. It's just so silly how good Justin Rankin is at football. Just watching him just like slice up these defenses. My big surprise, honestly, has been not the fact that Edmonton's winning, but the fact that how like they're the same sort of thing. They go into Ottawa. Oh, it was Ottawa. It was rainy. This. You're the one in Montreal. Davis Alexander's 13-1, which I will say, I didn't pick Nathan Rourke to win MOP this year. My pick was Davis Alexander because I was just like, he's got something to prove if he stays healthy and they win the 1 seed. I think it's him. I did put Rourke as MOC, though, just because that feels like too obvious. But I think your boy in Riderville, number 89, he's starting to build a bit of a strong case. I think if he goes for over 1,000 yards, there's a very strong argument to be made that Keon Schaefer-Baker wins MOC, or even maybe he's in that MOP conversation from the West.
Yeah, he's definitely up there right now, right? He has the second most receiving yards over 2 games. He gets 100 yards this next game. He'll have the most over 3 games in Rider history. Absolutely, when you look at awards, he's going to be up there if he stays healthy. That's been the biggest thing. Can he do a full season? We know how talented he is. We know how much of a spark plug he is as well in terms of getting the team fired up when he gets those first downs. You see him posing on the sidelines during games, right? Electric personality. And so it's just, can he stay healthy and can he do it? Sorry, can I get you to pause it?
Yeah, not a problem. Not at all. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And we are back. Sometimes life gets in the way and these things happen. Before we get into this week's games and all of summary, just to let you guys know, once again, there's no Edmonton-Winnipeg on the ticker if you are watching on YouTube, because that game's currently going on as it's 9:28 Eastern on Thursday night. But Britton and I both had Edmonton plus 3.5. Although I did have the Bombers to win just because I felt like it's me being skittish, and also I'm going to say this, it's kind of what I like to call bitch bet, where it's just like you take the easy route out and be like, you know what, hey, I'm going to pick you to cover, but I'm not afraid to pick you to win. But man, these Elks are starting to get a little loud out there. If they, especially too, if they go into this game and win, I think we're going to be in that what we were with Winnipeg all along, where some of the questions are getting answered, and just not that it doesn't look good, but it's just kind of like, is this the end of what we know as the Bombers from the late 2010s and early 2020s?
Yeah, I said on the Green Zone today, this is really a game I think that's going to tell you a lot about the West Division and kind of where the powers actually are. It feels like there's that transition now. Edmonton's on the rise. They found a dynamic playmaker in Justin Rankin. Cody Fajardo has settled down that quarterback spot. He's the guy. There's no Trey Ford this, Trey Ford that. He's the guy. The defense is getting better. It looks like they're on the rise. And for Winnipeg, I had a lot of questions. Yes, they were active in free agency. They signed a lot of veterans who were over 30. That is concerning for that team in terms of starters. And I think you're just seeing it. The more dynamic team right now is winning.
It's the more dynamic team. It's the more complete team. And obviously there was that article that came out earlier this week about them, why they're losing attendance, the stuff with the name change and all this stuff here. But there's a saying in sports, and that's winning fixes all. And I think if they continue their winning ways, you're going to get more people out to Commonwealth. And for a market like that who needs it, it's like I said, it's only up from here if you're the Edmonton Elks, not the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Yeah, but if they pull it off, Edmonton's going to be 3-0. Who would have thought they'd be one of the last undefeated teams left?
Shout out to our great friends here at the Turf District podcast on that one. The ticker's up. We're going to start going through everything that we need to know, but the first news I saw about this game was, obviously, like I was saying, Jake Herzlow's still not back for the Argonauts. Robert Priester's done for the season with an Achilles. But the big one I noticed with all this was no AJ Ouellette, as the CFL tweeted out, per Britton Grey. So they did credit you for this report.
Oh.
How serious is this for AJ? Is it just a couple games here and there, or is there a potential for going on the 1-game list or even going on to the 6th game?
I don't think it's that serious. To me, just what I got just from things is that it's one of those injuries where if this was the West Final, he's probably playing, but it's week 4 in the CFL. He was out there during close practice. I don't know if it was to show media or something. He jogged off the field in front of us as we went out there to talk to Corey Mace. It doesn't sound like it's serious. There was some concern. I heard some people tell me he took a photo with a fan and he was in a boot, which is something you never want to hear, but it might have been precautionary. Haven't seen him in a boot. He's been out there watching practice. He hasn't been in there the entire time he's been out there. I believe it's going to be short term. Like I said, I get the feeling if this was playoffs, it would be he would be able to go.
So basically, it's like if this was October 26th or November 10th, he's playing, but it's June 25th, and June football, it's a game you can afford to miss. That's not going to make or break your season.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. It's keep him healthy. Corey Mace. So it was interesting. We talked to him today, and part of the thing was he's on the reserve list. You can technically bring him out. Is that something we can expect? And Corey Mace essentially said, we woke up, we thought, mate, let's give him game day. Let's see how he feels. Now that we think about it, let's roll out the roster as is. It's not worth the risk, is what they said, to possibly aggravating it anymore. And so that's what they've decided to do.
And for anyone wondering out there, the reserve list is where Jake Herzlow currently sits. He was not on the 1 game or anything like that. He is on the reserve list. So just to clear the air up on that. Going into this game, though, I think this is really a challenge for both teams in the sense of, like you're saying, for Winnipeg. Winnipeg's playing for Saskatchewan. I'm 2 weeks ahead when Toronto plays Winnipeg on July 10th.
Yeah.
But for Sask here, I think it's a chance to show the league, hey, you know what? We can close out and we can win a game by a good margin. But for Toronto, even if they cover in a losing effort, I think it really can show them, hey, it adds to the narrative because it's more about earning a moral victory in this game for Toronto, I think, than win. Like, look, they want to win the game. They want to go 1-0 on the week. That's a simple message. That's even in the building still with Ryan Dinwiddie gone. That was something they preached when he was there. But if they can go in there and have a really good effort against the defending Grey Cup champions in their own building in what is supposed to be a home game for the Argonauts, that's something I feel like they can leave their heads held high with because of the travel they have to endure. Because after this, they're coming back here to Guelph, and on a short week, they have to fly all the way back up to Calgary next week to get the Cowboy boots on to play in the Stampede Bowl, and then they have to come back, and then they have to go to Winnipeg in 2 weeks. See, I was foreshadowing there to play, and then not even 2 weeks later, boom, you have to go all the way across country to BC before your bye week, before you come home. So I feel like how does travel play a factor into this just because of the constant back and forth, back and forth, back and forth? Meanwhile, a team like BC, for example, that's something they look, obviously they played in Hamilton next week, but BC, I know they don't come to Toronto, for example, till October, and I don't think they play either Montreal or Ottawa in the Eastern time zones till later on in the year.
Well, MLSE should have found a place to play some home games out in Ontario to avoid the travel.
So the thing, and also I'm just looking this up quickly for BC. So BC plays at Montreal, and they play. Okay, so I don't see their game with the. Okay, so they go to the Red Blacks at the end of August, and then they go to the Alouettes at the beginning of September. So just clarify that. So yes, they don't come east again for another 2 months. So where the Argonauts play right now at the University of Guelph, I will say this, bar none. Should they have found somewhere closer? Yes, but where they are currently training, it's not meant to house CFL games. It's like not like a regular season game. It's just from a broadcast standpoint. Argos play by color commentator Ben Grant and I went into the details last week. Just for preseason, it's great. It is what it is. Looks like you guys playing at the University of, I believe, was in Saskatoon, right?
Yeah, U of S.
Yeah, U of S playing where the Huskies play. It's the same thing for the Argonauts playing at the University of Guelph Alumni Stadium there. It's just for what a regular season game, it's not meant to be worth it. I don't know if the only other option I think for them would have been Hamilton, but I just think it was MLSE more or less trying to recoup as much financial loss as they can. It was the easy way out and not the one that you'd lost a lot of favor with fans with? Yes, but at the same time too, do I understand why they did it? Absolutely. But there's also an alternate universe where this is a away game for the Argonauts, and then the game they play at the end of August would have been a home game. I feel like they should have done that instead, but I think this is an agreement that's something, MLSE and the league and everyone else came up with just as a general standpoint of, hey, look at us now. Because if this game was in Hamilton tomorrow night, there's no doubt that more than 10,000 people are going to be there. There's not a clear eye that how many Argonaut fans are going to travel down the QEW leading into a long weekend, not even a long weekend, but leading into a holiday, which is on Wednesday this year, are going to come down. That remains to be unseen. So I understand why they did it, but Jesus Christ, these tramp stamp jersey sponsors are distracting. But that's basically the crux I have with it, where it's just, I don't think there was a proper home in Ontario to do it. And if there was, I think they would have done it. Meanwhile, for the next game we're going to get into, I think there's a little bit more that should be looked into for Saturday night's game, but we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah, listen, I just think there must have been some way you could have kept it east. Maybe not in Ontario. Quebec City apparently is trying to get a push for a CFL team. What better way to test it than what you could get out there? But it just doesn't look good, and I feel for the players who have to do so much traveling, and then you just lose. Well, and the fans the most, because you lose out on home games. And I know that the joke is that no one goes to Toronto Argonauts games, but there are some dedicated season ticket holders that are bearing the brunt of this, and I feel for them in all of this.
There is literally a guy, he goes by the nickname Ginger, who literally I saw in a Facebook group. He literally is driving all the way out from his home he lives, I think, about an hour or so north of Toronto. He's driving all the way to Regina. And I think he's staying out west. I think he might be going to the another game out there, but he's also staying out there and going to their game next Thursday in Calgary. So for as much as people want to dog the Argonauts, the ones who are loyal and who love their team, it is they're small but mighty. I'll say that for the diehards, for the Double Blue. They're small, but they are mighty, and they are loud, and they pack a punch.
Absolutely. Like I said, it's the joke. I get it, but I do feel for, as you mentioned, those hardcore fans. I know they're there. I know Argo fans have that dedicated fan base. It's just they've not been able to capture some of those new fans coming in, and maybe they will eventually. But yeah, it's a shame. I think I saw the Argo fan you're talking about. Looks like he's bringing quite the smoker to Saskatchewan with the tailgating and everything. And so I'm glad we have tailgating in Saskatchewan now. Finally, that fans can do something like that.
There was a photo. I think it was either Jeremy O'Day or it was some art. It was who's the CEO again? Craig Reynolds.
Yes,
it was one of the two of them trying to put a hot dog into Gaynor the Gopher's mouth, and it's so funny. And also you have Gaynor with like the comically big ring on his finger as well. It was very funny there. But a developing story in this game: Sergio Castillo two missed field goals in this game now.
Boy, and that's really the bright spot of Winnipeg in recent years. Has been how good Sergio has been. Hey, I've said it feels like Winnipeg is getting to that point where it just that core is past it, and maybe we're seeing it. Though, as I said, still very early. It's the CFL. Winnipeg could win 10 in a row like they did that one year or whatever it was, where they ended up still winning the West.
Yeah, I think they started 0-3, and then they literally hosted the West Final, and that was the game against you guys. It was freezing cold, but I remember it was an instant classic. And then they went to the Grey Cup, and ultimately, Collaros hurt his finger, and the rest is history because Robert Priester, who we were saying earlier with the Achilles injury, ended up picking off Collaros in that game, and that was kind of the end of that. As it pertains to this game, though, I'm going to say this. Sask wins, but I think Toronto covers the 4.5. I think Toronto's a better team than what the number is giving.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. When I looked at the bet lines as well, 5.5 was kind of the limit. I felt comfortable because I do think Toronto has that ability. The Riders also love to keep things close and kind of give their fans a bunch of heart attacks. It's just the Corey Mace team has been really good at keeping things close. They find ways to win, but they don't blow a lot of teams out. I don't remember too many blowouts, even when Corey Mace taking over. And so I do expect Toronto to be able to keep it close because that's just kind of in the DNA of the Riders until they prove that, yeah, we can find a way to put away a team and win by 14, 21 points.
100%. And also, like I said, too, it's a real game for Toronto to kind of put themselves on the map and be like, you know what, hey, you thought we were kind of like basically showing everyone that, hey, last year was an anomaly and that we're back to being what we've been throughout the 2020s. And like I said, too, I don't have the expectation for them to get to Calgary right now. Maybe they can prove me wrong. And I'm saying that too as someone who quasi-fan of the team and also reports on the team. So I'm saying that as that. But I think they still have a long way to go over to do that. But this is definitely a team that's taking it 1 week at a time. And, hey, the more you keep chipping away at it, who knows? Maybe you're the team that's riding into McMahon Stadium where your season ultimately came to an end last year. Biggest X factor for me in this game, simple, is just going to be turnovers. I always say that, but I just think which quarterbacks not proven to prone to turnovers, but how is Kelly's ball security? Does Trevor Harris make a mistake here or there? I think that's ultimately what's going to come down to. Either what defense can get a stop or which quarterback is the least amount of turnovers.
Do you know how many turnovers the Riders have forced this year?
I don't know the exact number, but I know it's quite a few.
No, 0.
Ooh.
They haven't forced a fumble. They haven't caught an interception yet. You're thinking of last year where that team was up above. They were second in league in interceptions. It feels like they should have 7. Marcus Sales has dropped about 3 of them that have hit him in the hands. Tavon Campbell should have had a pick 6 in game 1. This is I talked to Josh Bell, the defensive coordinator this year, taking over from Corey Mace. He's a former defensive back, so I asked him, like, what's the message to these guys? He looked up in the air and just let out an exasperated sigh. He's like, listen, my calling card we're really at the top of the league in terms of interceptions. They'll come. We know they're going to come in bunches, but we have to make those plays. I had a good laugh at that. And he also had another good line. Hopefully Chad's wants to make some Oprah donations, which is you get one and you get one and you get one. Josh Bell, one of my favorite interviews. He is so good. The pictures he could paint his way with words, his sayings, one of my favorite interviews on this team.
3445 clip it. That's the name of the podcast. Thank you very much for that, sir. I can't believe I thought that. I thought for sure they had a couple more than that. I don't know why I thought, like, I didn't think of goose egg. I haven't looked at the stats too much for them. I apologize for that one. But yeah, like I said too, I think this is the kind of, like, if Sask can force Kelly into uncomfortable situations, like the one turnover he had against Montreal where he had to make the throw off schedule, chucked it up there, had an arm punt, Montreal picked it off, or even like the same thing as last week where a guy like Scott Hutter from shout out Wilfrid Laurier, having 2 interceptions. I think if you have a game like that, and also when you say Devontae Campbell, I always think of last year that Jeremiah Masoli game around this time when he had a beautiful pick 6 in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's 100%.
Transitioning now to the BC Lions, who will be hosting the Calgary Stampeders in their first home game in Kelowna, which this is the one I was referring to where I think there's a little bit more smoke to that fire for a potential team in BC because, like how we were saying before with expansion, you're not putting a third team in Alberta. No other teams are going to go in the prairies. So I think if another West team does get added, who knows, 10, 15, 20 years from now, this could be a real test because if these fans show out, even for the Lions, I think it will show the league that, hey, and also for Amar Doman, we're not going to shy away from another team coming into our province. And as well, you do have enough distance between you and Vancouver to where it doesn't cause that friction to where maybe some people leave the Lions, but at the same time too, you might gain some new fans as well. But as it pertains to this game, I have a little limerick. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I'm not a fool and will not be fooled for a third time. Give me the Calgary Stampeders. Like I said too, I think one team is bad on accident and one team is just unlucky. And I think the Stampeders are the unlucky team.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Stampeders are arguably their kicker not kicking it into the end zone from beating the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They went to double overtime with the Riders. They could easily be 2-0. And it's unfortunate with the BC Lions injury luck. It's going to be tough for Nathan Rourke to keep up with who he's throwing to, and they have 3 questionables on their depth chart or on the injury report last came out. So we'll see who they can put out there. But that BC defense is bad. Something has to be changed. I don't know if it's health or system, but they can't stop anything right now, and they need to figure that out because eventually those receivers we think will get back and healthy. Yeah, and Matthew Betts needs to be better. Let's be honest.
Sales needs to be better. Robert Carter needs to be better. There's a lot of guys on that defense who need to be better. But for both teams right now, I will say this, and this is going to sound weird, but if Calgary loses this game, say if BC wins, because BC doesn't need to win more, Calgary goes to 0-3. I don't think anyone's going to bat an eye. It's just, man, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. BC goes to 0-3. It's going to get a little loud from, I think, the rest of, pundits like you and I from around the league where we start to moan this more like, hey, everyone had you pegged as the favorite. Everyone had you going to Calgary. Everyone had Nathan Rourke as MOP. Now, it's not just the fact that you're losing. Like, week 1, I was like, you know what? Oh, my goodness, talking about dropped interceptions. Excuse me. With a team like BC now, it's just if you continue to lose and if you continue to pile up, it's just I don't know how you rebound and get back and get better from this. Calgary, meanwhile, they're still good in the sense as we know what they are, and I still think had it not been for the Bombers making the proper defensive adjustments, Calgary probably is 1-1 right now. And like we even said too, the fact that I feel like with Vernon Adams, I'm going to basically just use a song title from a girlfriend of a former Canadian Prime Minister. Vernon Adams is the perfect hot and cold quarterback in the CFL. Where it's like when you're in, you're out. When you're in, you're in. You're up and you're down. You're wrong when it's right. You're black when it's white. That's VA in a sense where we don't see that total consistency from him. But I feel like he'll have a couple games where it's like, hey, you know what? If you get this Vernon Adams all season long, he can be great. He could potentially lead you. But then the VA of bad comes out where, he throws some weird interceptions. He's not exactly this elite level quarterback. So it's going to be interesting to see what version of him comes out in this game. But as of right now, too, even from a coaching standpoint, you have to trust Dave Dickinson more than Buck Pierce right now, especially in a situation like this to where the Lions we both have it saying the same way. The fact that BC is the favorite, too, in this, I don't know. Because obviously, look, the sports books aren't in bed with the CFL like they are in the NFL, and I don't think that ever will be the case. I'm kind of glad it's not, as someone who is a frequent gambler of football. But the way I look at this, too, is just with BC, I think it's a lot of people banking on, this is the waiting for it. This is the week the Lions get it done. This is the week it happens. Mm-hmm. I just think it might be too little too late for them to where I still think they can make a run, but I just think you got to churn it over sooner than later. But I'd rather be wrong picking against them than wrong picking for them, which I have been 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I mean, with Nathan Rourke, too, I don't know if it's really a narrative that's surrounding him, but he hasn't won in Winnipeg in the playoffs. He hasn't won in Saskatchewan. Until he proves it, you have to think home field advantage would be major for the BC Lions to get. And if you fall to 0-3 and the Riders get up to 3-0 and the Elks are up there, can he come out west? Now, like I said, I don't know if that's a narrative because he could have easily beaten the Riders if Trevor Harris didn't lead that comeback at the end, but he hasn't done it yet. So I think home field advantage is important for them, and you're falling real behind to even hosting the West semifinal at this point if Edmonton continues to kind of do what they're doing.
Because you're at a point right now where it could be literally a green-filled West final come November 7th.
Could you imagine Cody Fajardo coming into Saskatchewan to play the West final?
The stories I would produce from that would just be incredible. And even on the other end, too, there's a very good chance that you have, you have a battle of a QEW East final. You have a rematch of last year's East final. There's so many stories and so many dots still left to be connected. Obviously, we're only 4 of 21 weeks into the season, but just then I was going to say the possibilities are, and I didn't know what I was going to say, but basically the possibilities are still, and it's been a long day for both of us.
Yeah.
The possibilities are still endless when it comes to this season, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
No, every team is still in it. Well, except Ottawa. I'm kidding. Ottawa, you can figure it out. But yeah, there's a lot left to be told. As mentioned, BC injuries, they come back. They could go on a run. You absolutely never know in this league, and that's what makes it so great.
So I just want to look at so I think you and I both are Calgary straight up and against the spread, correct?
Yeah, until BC is healthier, you almost have to.
So the other way too, I looked at with the by the way, for the tomorrow night's game, I love the over, by the way, 56.5 points. I could easily see like a 30-27 football game.
I have it 38-33, so I'm expecting a lot of points in the game.
I mean, the only under to have hit so far this season was Ottawa and Edmonton week 1. Besides that, every other over has hit this season. The over so far is only lost once. But for BC though, like after this, 2 against Edmonton. And then they have at home to Toronto. Their home, that's their official home opener at BC Place. And then Bombers, Cats, Stamps, Roughriders, Red Blacks, Alouettes, Roughriders. Besides the one Red Blacks game, it's kind of tough to find wins, so they got to start doing it soon. And now those 2 Elks games have, not exactly looked easy. And here's the other thing too. The fact that BC, the Argonauts, Blue Bombers, the BC games the Argonauts games on a Saturday night, that Bombers game's a Thursday night one, like the one we're seeing right now. So that's where travel comes into factor for them as well. So if you're the Lions, these next 3 games, even if you're 2-3 going into the bye, which at this point there's a very good chance they're 1-4, 0-5 before they have their home opener on July 25th. And at that point, who knows? You could have the Beatles come back to life and play. I don't know if you're selling out BC Place that night.
Yeah, if it's not going well, winning cures a lot of things. We see it all the time. But yeah, it just, you can't fall too far behind if you're the BC Lions. I know that the saying is the season doesn't start until Labor Day, but you can put some money in the bank early in the season, which can help you when you do eventually go through a lull eventually.
I feel like that's only the case if you're still hovering around, or if you're just above or just under 500, to where you can really kickstart your season Labor Day, kind of like how in the NFL you can really kickstart your season American Thanksgiving. I feel like and Tim White with a touchdown there for the Bombers right before half. With Labor Day though, I feel like it could be a little like the Argonauts last year. They had that beautiful walk-off win against the Ticats, but it turned out to be too little, too late for them because they won 2 in a row and then they lost their remaining games. So I think if you're BC, you got to find ways to win, and you got to do it quick.
Absolutely. Don't fall behind. As I mentioned, Nathan Rourke, can they do it on the road twice in a row? If you don't, like I said, if you don't even host the West semifinal, that's a tough task in today's CFL.
Especially too, even though next year it's going to be an earlier start to the playoffs, it won't be as cold. I feel like Nathan Rourke and VA are kind of that same sense too. When the weather gets a little bit colder out, the talent kind of is masked by having the advantages of playing in a dome. We've seen it before with several players. Jared Goff. Moving on now to Sunday night, and I have a great saying for this game, because you and I have been talking about spreads. Good teams win, great teams cover, but the Ottawa Red Blacks are neither. Do you know their schedule after this game?
I imagine it's not fun.
They play. So they're at Montreal this week. They play you guys next Friday night. At Edmonton, versus Winnipeg, versus Montreal, at the Riders, at the Bombers, at the Alouettes. That is between now and August the 20th. So basically for the next 8 weeks, you're playing Saskatchewan twice, you're playing Winnipeg twice, you're playing Montreal twice, and you're playing a team you already lost to in their own building on a Thursday night on a short week. So that's traveling all the way across the country pretty much, going from playing on a Friday to a Thursday, even though it still is 6 days, that travel going all the way from Ottawa to Edmonton, because you're playing Friday night, but then you're traveling on Wednesday, kind of like how the Argonauts traveled today to get to Regina. So, and I'm not saying you have to write the season off already if you're the Red Blacks, but you're trying to look for wins, and it's a lot harder to do than BC, unless Jake Maier finds the gas pedal and Ryan Dinwiddie pulls that Dinwiddie magic out. But for right now, though, my big question for them more is anything, I don't see Ryan Dinwiddie being a one and done. I think Osei put too much just faith in them. I really think if this season continues to go south, Sean Burke's gone by the end of the season.
That very well could be.
Because he's the one who
Absolutely.
brought in
Yeah,
Ryan.
he
Look,
brought in Ryan Dinwiddie.
he's the one who went big game hunting, and so far, the big game hunting is you got your ass kicked twice.
Yeah. Now, like I said at the beginning, that's a team that I actually think will figure it out, whether or not Jake Maier is actually the answer there or not. Maybe they do go to McLeod Bethel Thompson at some point, but so much changes. I thought it was really easy to pick against them early. Middle of the season, I think that'll dictate where this team is going, because I really like some of the moves they made. I really like what they did on defense, pretty much rebuilding it with some great talent. It's just, can you get the quarterback play from Jake Maier? You haven't yet, but it's still early.
I still feel like he could be very what Nick Arbuckle was in 2025, where he has some games eventually where it's kind of like, hey, look at him. Or like even they have some losses where it's kind of like, oh, they stepped on their own feet. Kind of like, ironically, what the Argonauts did against the Red Blacks, where Argonauts were up 22-1. Everything's looking sunshine and daisies, but a few bad plays here and there, and boom, you lose the game by 4 points at the end of the game. But no, it's just because when you look at it right now, like they have their next bye week is not until week 8, so they have another month to go before their next bye week. They're gonna have to find ways to pull out some wins, and the only team I could see them doing it against right now, when I look at this, maybe they still won against Montreal, but probably be maybe if they split against Winnipeg. But even then, even if they can end the season strong, because like they have the Cats, even the back half of the season, they play 3 teams twice. They play the Argonauts twice, they play the Stamps twice, and they play the Cats twice. So it's like whoever made the schedule for the Red Blacks really hates Ryan Dinwiddie.
CFL scheduling. I couldn't believe it, how the Riders and Lions were both off week 1. Still grinds my gears.
I understand the Lions and the Argonauts being off week 1 because of the World Cup, just to give them that, like, because of everything going on and stuff like that. That one I understood. I also believe too the Lions are still practicing relatively close to where they live, and I believe they're still practicing in Surrey, even though they're traveling. It's not like the Argos being completely displaced, because the Argos rely on BMO Field for everything. So that's why I think they did it there, and then also too, like the BC having their bye before they come home, and then Toronto's gonna have the same thing. They have the week off, that long August long weekend, which they're usually on the road anyway, because there's the Caravana Parade, and that usually takes over where they practice downtown anyway, so they're always on the road to begin with. But when we look at, and lovely puppy making an appearance as always.
Someone's outside just walking by.
It's always expected. It's always expected with you. But no, just when I look at Ottawa, I think it's more about finish the season strong, and then for next year, it's got to be the year you come on to be that true contender. Unless they turn things around. But the way I look at this right now is just, I don't know how, from what you've looked like so far, you can look at this team and say, yeah, they'll make the playoffs, especially too with the fact I would not rule out the crossover being a thing this year, especially if BC or Calgary figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very much in play, as mentioned. A lot of these teams, you can see where the deficiencies are.
Yeah.
But it feels like you can also see where kind of the light at the end of the tunnel is. Even Ottawa, you see what's there. Ryan Dinwiddie's a mad genius at times, and the way he's able to get things out of teams. I'm not counting any team out yet. It's tough to not with Ottawa, but like I said, they'll figure it out. But yeah, the crossover is going to be interesting. But can BC figure it out? Where is Winnipeg by the end of this, right? We'll see what happens in this game and the rest of the way. But it's a year where I don't think, especially now with the Lions faltering, that there's really one big favorite. It feels like there's a lot of parity right now in the CFL.
That's exactly it. Where it's just there's parity. You can still make cases for everyone to I think make the playoffs at this point. But just when I'm saying it with Ottawa, it's just too little, too late in the sense of by the time you get everything figured out, it could be one of those things where it's like, there's a famous Simpsons episode that I love where basically they buy a horse and becomes a jockey, and the horse leaves the stall. The horse Duncan leaves the stall too late, and by the time the horse is already racing, it's too bad the race is already over. It's like, hey, by the time the Ottawa Redblacks may figure it out, it's gonna be, hey, Toronto's on a roll. Hamilton's looking really strong. Montreal's, and I know Montreal lost last week, but Montreal's still going to be a very strong team in the CFL. You can't just not trust Davis Alexander. And then, like you said, out west too, what's going to happen with Winnipeg tonight. Hell, Winnipeg may come back and win. It's only a 10-point game right now. So that's the thing, too. Winnipeg, if you come back and you win by 3, God bless you. Does Calgary figure it out and turn it around? There's so many questions to where I have so much more faith in Winnipeg and Calgary at the moment figuring it out because we've seen it from them so far to where I'm not saying it's over if you lose, but if they go out there and they get railroaded in Montreal Sunday night, and I know the spread's 8 points, and I took Montreal in the spread. But if you truly look like you've given up already, or it's not there and it's not clicking, I just, not to say he's going to lose accountability because I have a lot of respect for the genius, like the mad genius Ryan Dinwiddie, like you said. It's just, how do you see what happened and believe it going forward because of what he was able to do in Toronto so quickly? Remember, until last year, his floor was the East Final. That's a place Ottawa hasn't been in almost 10 years. So, and also I'll say this too, because I know this as well, that last Saturday's home game was it was the least attended home game even in Renegades history, and the Renegades ended up folding. And no, I'm not saying Ottawa's going to fold and everything's going bad. Obviously, look, they have their troubles with the lacrosse team right now. But if you're OSEG, you kind of got to be panicking in the sense of, we got to get to winning, because you look at the schedule and when I go back to the Sean Burke argument, it's, hey, them, and I know Sean has nothing to do with what's going on in the field, but he's the one who went to OSEG and said, hey, like, manage to get yourself promoted upstairs and not get fired. But then at the same time too, we're going to go big game hunting. But then if your big game hunting ends up being, you're trying to catch a 50-pound bass fish and you end up catching a little trout, what's to say that you're not going to look at Sean Burke and not blame him? Obviously, look, he's the president of football ops, so it's very different. But at the same time too, it all ties together.
Absolutely. That's an organization that needs to start winning. They need to start building some good faith back with their fan base. That's been a very dedicated fan base since they went back there. But when you constantly lose, it's hard to keep those fans. Good news is next year you almost have to try to miss the playoffs. So that might help them get back to the postseason.
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying they have to get back to the postseason, but they can't just be feeble and just look like a football team that bought, because, like, even I'll admit, last year covering the Argonauts in October was not fun. It was kind of painful. If by October comes around and, like, look, when they play Toronto, they play Hamilton twice, you're just going out there and being like, you know what, hey, U-Hauls are packed, we want to get the hell out of town. You got to find ways to motivate guys to win, to not where guys are just saying, hey, we're already competing for jobs for next year. They got to start playing competitive football to where, you give your fans something to hope for. You just say, hey, you know what? It was year one. Believe in the long-term plan, because the more this goes on, the more and more it just gets. And especially to next year, if they're the 9th team on the outside looking in, that ain't going to be pretty, because we already joked about it that whoever that 9th team is going to, have a little bit of embarrassment. If it's Ottawa, it's just not pretty.
Yeah, completely agree. They have to turn around. I want to see them turn it around to keep that market strong, but where's the results? You hope it's soon. You hope it's soon with Ryan Dinwiddie.
You really do, because they were basically bought in on the promise of, hey, look what he did with Toronto, making them a marquee franchise. Even though, look, the attendance numbers aren't there, I still have the belief that them getting railroaded in the East Final the way they did really killed them in that sense. But had they had won that game, you buy a lot of goodwill with the fan base. But obviously, there's a lot of off-field stuff with Chad. Obviously, what happened in the offseason, and then obviously with the injury. So where it's just now building up that faith, that good faith, and that respecting winning culture. Obviously, look, the word respect, obviously he's lost a lot of respect with fans, but it's neither here nor there. But if you get new people in and you show the world that, hey, the Argonauts are there and what they are and come out to the games, kind of like what Edmonton's doing, Ottawa needs to look at them and say, because, like, even look, if Ottawa can have a season this year, kind of like what Edmonton had last year, where you start off a little weak, but then you finish strong towards the end, you have some games where it's like they're in it, but you lose, and then you're the belle of the ball this offseason, to where it's just, hey, make a couple of those marquee moves, figure out what you need, bring it in. Who knows? Maybe this time next year we're singing the praises of Ryan Dinwiddie and saying, look, there's the Ryan Dinwiddie we've all come to know.
Absolutely. I'm intrigued to see how this goes, because as you mentioned, it's not going to be one and done with what Dinwiddie can do.
No, I honestly don't think there's any coach that's truly on the hot seat right now. Because obviously, like, and I've been bringing up the NFL because you can make the parallels there. There's always coaches. Yeah, I can already name them 6 coaches in the NFL this year. They're probably seats warm or seat could be warm.
Mhm.
CFL, you don't really see that. Obviously, Bob Dice, we all kind of knew what was coming. That was more of the darker metaphor of the like older dog of an older dog, where you just know the life expectancy is coming to an end. But with the CFL this year, outside of maybe Buck Pierce, if it ends up going completely off the rails with injuries and BC wanting to make a drastic change, I only say that just because of how high expectations are. There's no other coach you look at and you say, hey, they're gone. Maybe Hamilton if they don't get to the Grey Cup, maybe. But besides that, like Mike Miller just got there. Jason Moss has a lot of built-in security with the franchise. Mike O'Shea basically controls his own fate. Hell, I would say Corey Mace controls his own fate at this point to where he's, like you said, look at him. First 2 years there. A West Final appearance and a Grey Cup championship. Then Dave Dickinson kind of controls his own destiny, and Mark Killam just got there, and they've turned it around. So there's not really a coach this year that's, and we all know Mark Mueller eventually is going to get a job, but hey, maybe Mark likes being a offensive coordinator on one of the best offenses in the league. Who knows? But for right now, though, if you're an Ottawa fan, you got to kind of not be panicking, but worrying. But I will still say this: I still think there's more panic in a BC team at 0-3 than there is at a Red Blacks team at 0-3.
Absolutely, just based on expectations. And then it's funny you mentioned that. Literally, this past game, just watching it, I was talking with the Green Zone guys, and we were discussing Mark Mueller and kind of where he could go. And there is no spot unless things go off the rails completely in Calgary. Do they maybe make something there? Winnipeg, like how bad would things have to get for some of these guys to get fired? It'd have to be pretty terrible. So I don't see where that next spot is right now.
I really don't see a world where Dickinson would get fired. I think it would be more of what just happened with Sean Burke, where he probably would say, hey, I'm going to step away from day-to-day football ops. I'm going to be the John Huffnagel, and I'm going to bring in the new, kind of guy, how Huffnagel kind of, I don't want to say groomed, but I feel like groomed is the most appropriate word in this, to where it's like he kind of, groomed him to be the next great head coach of the Calgary Stampeders. I could see Dave Dickinson then kind of passing the torch on to someone new, to say like a Mark Mueller, to come in and run the ship in Cowtown. But I think it's more Dave's call, unless the Stampeders have a truly horrid season, because obviously, look, that was their first 2024 was their first bad season in 20 years. So that's just the thing there. By the way, as I'm watching the screen, my odds, by the way, were ScoreBet. TSN's using FanDuel. They have Roughriders at -3.5 and the over-under at 57.5. So ScoreBet, you get an extra point and you get 1 point less. So if it ends 30-27, you win your money on ScoreBet, but you won't win on FanDuel.
Just a plug there.
Little plug. Sponsor me, please.
Yeah.
But with Sask, is it through basically through the, I don't know what the name of the Saskatchewan lottery is, but is it through there or?
Yes, so playnow.com is the only legal gambling site to use in Saskatchewan. It's run through, I believe it's SIGA, Saskatchewan, the gaming authority out here has it. But it's the same people who have the casinos and stuff in Regina and Moose Jaw.
Okay, because I know too, what was I going to say? Because I know Alberta's got I believe it's called Play Alberta, and then I think Play Now, the one you just said as well, I believe that's the same thing for Manitoba as well, because that name sounded familiar.
Yeah, it's in a couple provinces now. SIGA out here runs it, so that's the only legal one.
Gotcha. Just wanted to ask because I wasn't too sure about that. Because obviously, I know Play Alberta, Play Alberta, for example, does have the sponsorship, I believe, with the Elks. I don't know if they have with the Stamps, but I know they definitely have with the Elks. Folks, when the dogs are barking, it's time to sign off, and that's a loving joke. Obviously, Britton, we respect you a lot. But no, heading into Canada Day, it's kind of weird to think the first month of the season is basically almost come and gone. But for as much as we love football to come back, it goes in a snap. Oh, it's quick. It's like you said, it's already week 4. It will be in snow right away here, it feels like. We'll be watching that cool, crisp October football. But obviously, this time next year, we'll be already almost halfway through the season, which is weird to think about. Yeah, that'll be something, having training camp in April in Saskatchewan. There might be blizzards during camp. You have those days at camp, so they literally up guys, get the hand warmers out of storage, and we got to put the hot paws in there. We got to get the warmers in, guys. Come on, Trevor's hands are freezing. Come on, and AJ just rolls out in just short shorts and a tank top. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh, what blizzard? I don't see anything. But anyway, guys. You know where to find Britton. All the links will be in the bio. For Britton Grey, I'm Griff. Hope you enjoyed episode number 437 on here. We'll see you next week to get ready for the Stampede Bowl. Have a great one, everybody. Enjoy week 4.